Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday's Friday 365. Today's guest, Tony, is someone who's making a big impact, especially with young men. He's the creator of the Stronger Movement, hashtag Stronger Movement. He's helping the next generation of boys and men using real biblical principles. I'm excited to have you on the show, Tony.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to this podcast because this is something I really resonate with. For the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, can you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so that's a broad topic because I do a lot of things. My day job and what I do actually for a career is I'm a car guy. I run 4 car dealerships for the McCarthy Auto Group here in Kansas City, Missouri. My position is what's called a platform director, and I oversee the operations for 4 pretty large dealerships here in town. And so that consumes obviously most of my time. Then my wife and I are joint partners in a med spa group. She's a nurse, and that's what she does for a living. She owns and operates the med spas that we have. We have 3, hopefully soon to be 4 locations here in Kansas City. And then obviously we have 3 children, all in competitive sports. Busy around the house here. But yeah, so recently I've been working with a coach, a life coach personally, a psychologist. I don't know how much of his information I can release, but anyways, he deals with a lot of high level professionals, mega church leaders. He's deals with an NBA team, specifically one that's currently still in the game in the playoffs. But the whole hashtag Stronger movement came about in a homework assignment from him. He just wanted me to come up with a bunch of words that kind of spelled out character definitions, defining characteristics of how I like to lead and what kind of example I would like to be. And so we wrote down about 10 or 15 words on one of our sessions. And then at the end of it, he said, okay, your homework is to go take these words and turn it into an acronym. So with some research and some chat GPT and just bouncing, off of Facebook, asking my Facebook following some questions and just garnering a bunch of information over a few days and taking some notes, I came up with stronger. In fact, the first word I came up with was strong, and I was stuck on resilient and relentless. And I thought, man, how do you eliminate one of those words? Those are 2 huge words in leadership, being resilient and relentless. And they're similar in characteristic, but different in the quality of the word and what's all into it. So with some advice and some coaching, I extended the word from strong to stronger so I could pick up another R and I didn't have to abandon either resilient or relentless. I got to keep both of them. So that's how the word was born. So then after that, like anything in my life, anything worth doing is worth overdoing is kind of what I've always said. And so I just dove all the way in and started, posting stuff. I had to change my name on TikTok like 2 or 3 different times as the whole, branding developed, and stronger was the basis of it. And then, I wanted to be a stronger leader and strong. There was a bunch of leadership type stuff. That's kind of one of the things that I love to do in life is leadership mentoring and just being a leader in general and teaching others to be leaders as well. And so trying to find a URL that wasn't already taken was part of the task, and so that's how eventually I landed on The Stronger Leader. And, it just all kind of fits. So the company name is The Stronger Leader, www.thestrongerleader.com. And then within that is the movement, the hashtag Stronger Movement. Yeah, man. So that's where we are. So what do I do? Man, I do a lot. I do a lot. We'll get on. There may be some questions that come up later that may get into my life and why I'm on the track that I'm on, but I'll let you. I won't steal your show.
No, I really want to dive into your stories and experiences. When did stronger stop being just a word and start becoming your mission?
Yeah, so really that day when I sat down and what was really cool, I'll tell you, I wish I had the book where I could show you. Maybe I'll send a clip of it to you and you can use it as a piece. In my notebook, I was writing notes, and one of the other root words I was going to use was solid. So I just kept writing down, I went to chat GPT, tell me good leadership characteristics that start with an S. So I wrote them all down, and then the T, and then the O, and the L, and the I, and the R, so I'm writing them all down in the book. And stronger kind of it leaned that way, the strong did. And then so but as I was writing these character traits down, a lot of them, and listen, I have to say where I'm at in my life, I wasn't always here. So I'm as myself, I'm proud of who I am and where I am today. And so I don't want the way I speak of myself and the characteristics that I have now today, don't want that to be misrepresented as like egotistical or narcissistic or anything like that. because I wasn't always the person that I am today. I was actually kind of a turd. I was a drug addict. I mistreated my wife. I cheated on her. I just didn't do a lot of things in life very good. And so, 10 years ago when I was saved, and I'll share that story with you in a minute, all changed. So the characteristics that I have now has really only been the development of who I truly am over the last 10 years. And so I want the listeners, as they listen to this, oh, this guy's full of himself. I'm really not. I'm really just I got to pinch myself every now and again. And wow, am I really living this life? Am I able to be this good, consistently? And, with the power of Christ and just diving into that spirituality side of my faith and my life, that's what's really helped, been the springboard for all of it. But so as I'm writing all these words down and I'm trying to come up with an acronym, and stronger ended up being it, man, I really just kind of like owned those words, right? I didn't just jot them down and they alphabetically lined up with the words. Initially, that was the initial piece of it, right? But I had hundreds of words that I chose from in some cases, right? And so there was a lot of thought that went into the acronym, how I come up with each word that goes with each letter in that acronym. And so I think at the moment, whenever I finish that, and it's kind of like a painting where you put the last stroke on the painting and you take a step back and you're like, that's it. I did it. This is good, right? And so that kind of when I did that, when I put that final pen stroke on that last R of relentless, relentless just kind of caps it. You know what I mean? And it just sums it all up. And so stronger being the root word. I want to be stronger in each one of these categories, right? And I want to, and the R relentless being the last word, tying it all in. Man, it was kind of like an exclamation point on it, like, yes, this is me. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. There's a lot of other great characteristics that aren't in that word that I definitely still want to be. But like, I want people to like, hey, you're that stronger guy, right? And you can't tell in here, and I don't know if any of my videos are revealing. I'm 46 years old. I'm 205 pounds, 10% body fat. I'm pretty big. I'm muscular. I was a bodybuilder at one point. And so, that's also what's really cool about that word stronger. It has, such a literal meaning as well. So when you look at me like, man, that guy's strong spiritually, mentally, physically. And so that's why I was like, that this is who I am. This is who I am. And I think that if I can portray this and lead with these credentials, so to speak, and get others to follow in that suit, maybe they'll develop their own acronym one day or whatever. That's fine. Maybe they also take on the stronger acronym and live out those characteristics. Man, I don't think that's such a bad thing. And I'm not so full of myself and narcissistic to think that if every man on this earth would adopt the stronger concept, they would be better. And it's, my way, it's the only way. It's not. I know it's not. There's 1,000 of great men out there that have acronyms of their own, maybe that they live by, that they haven't shared. And so, but as for me and mine, and it's true to me, and it works, and it's working, and it continues to work, and that's kind of like like kind of put my rudder in the water, so to speak, and like full speed ahead. And my son watching and listening and learning, hopefully at 10 years old, he's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And I kind of told him, I said, "Do you want to do this with me? Like, why don't you? Let's do this together." And that's when I'm like, once I kind of went arm in arm with my son and locked hands with him in this deal, that's when it kind of became real for me.
Yeah, can you unpack what stronger means for you?
Sure. So the acronym is spiritual, trustworthy, resilient, open-minded, noble, genuine, encouraging, and relentless. And those are the words.
A lot of people out there are still trying to figure their lives out. How can they use stronger in their everyday life? And can you give an example?
Yeah. So, spiritual, let's just start with that one, it being the first. And I don't believe in coincidences. I wish I was so creative and crafty and intentional that I would say that spiritual being the most important. That's why I chose it to be the first word. I'm not that smart, but as God would have it, and as I believe to be true, I think spirituality is absolutely the most important characteristic in all things. It's the foundation by everything you do. Now, let me share with you, I believe in Jesus Christ. That's my Lord and Savior. I'm a Christian. However, there are other people out there that can lead by the stronger acronym and the characteristics within there, and they can be spiritual in their own accord hardcore. They could follow Buddha, Yahweh, Allah, whatever it is their faith grounding is, I'm okay with. This isn't a conversion tactic. This isn't a left-handed or backhanded way of getting people to follow Christianity. I would love that, right? I'm a Christian. That's what I'm supposed to do, to lead people to Christ. But that's not my true Jesus. God will do that on his own with my words, right? I don't have to do that. I just lead in obedience. But spiritual, I was in addiction counseling when I first got saved, and it's so funny. This is how I know God has a sense of humor, because me in the vulnerable state that I was, the headstrong, like just diving into my religion at that very first part of my sobriety, I was like head over heels in love with Jesus, right? And so I went through a couple of therapies that I just couldn't get, like, just didn't resonate with me. And finally I met this guy, and he was tougher than nails. Like, he called me out on my crap. He wouldn't let me, I mean, he didn't let me breathe, right? And that's when I needed some I'm an alpha, so I needed a guy but the funny part about it is this guy was a foul-mouthed Jew from New York. And, here I am, this, Jesus preaching, like, and he would roll his eyes when I would talk about Jesus, and he would make fun of me, and he would joke with me, and like he would just kind of poke at me. And then one day he tells me, he says, "Hey, you do realize that I'm only teasing with you. When I tease with you about your religion, about Christianity, it's because I'm Jewish. It's just it's a perfect moment for me to tease you," right? He goes, "But I want you to know something. Your success of all of the goals that you want to accomplish, number one, you got to be sober, which you are. Number two, you have to have some sort of spiritual grounding." He said, "In all my years of psychology, everyone who comes into these meetings and starts a rebound with some sort of spiritual grounding has a higher level of success rate of not returning. And so I want to encourage you, keep doing what you're doing." He said, "I'm only teasing you about your Christianity." And so that really resonated with me. And then now I kind of use that same philosophy when I'm telling people. I'm like, "Hey, if you don't have a religion and you want one, come to mine. Christianity is pretty good. Jesus is, I know, true. But if you already have one and you come to me and you want to learn how to be a better leader or whatever, I'm like, hey, whatever your spiritual faith is, that has to be the main substance in your life for which everything's built on, because that's the foundation, and if you don't have that, nothing else will really stand. Because, and I think there's another piece of that faith word. Faith is having in the unseen, right? You have to, having faith in something is believing something to be there that you haven't seen before. And I think if you're leading people and you're trying to get them to do things maybe that they haven't done or don't think they can do, and you're trying to encourage them, but you don't really believe in your heart that they can actually get there, it will come out. Like, the people will know that you don't really mean the encouragement. There's usually some selfish motivation behind there. And I've even heard poor leaders in the past, like, they leave a sales meeting and like, these guys ain't ever going to get it, and they don't believe. And so, and you look, and those guys usually don't have any sort of spiritual grounding, because they don't have faith. They don't understand that faith muscle is so important in leadership, because if you can't believe in something you've never seen before, how are you going to get people to do something they've never done?
No, that's a great takeaway. To have a spiritual grounding, it's so powerful, because I always say this on my podcast, and what you are is God's gift to you, and what you do with it is your gift to God.
Hey man, that's awesome. I love that. I
What
love
would you
that.
tell someone who feels like they're stuck or just like don't know where to start?
Yeah, so just had an hour and a half, 2 hour long meeting with a young man yesterday that somebody on Facebook he had put something on Facebook that he's kind of lost and seeking the higher high and all that. And then somebody who knew me tagged me in that post, and I ended up meeting with this kid, and that's exactly where he was, man. And so, the first things first is I just kind of, you unravel everything and peel the onion back and go back, where you currently are, where that you're stuck. Is there a reason you're stuck, right? Is there past hurts, past trauma? Is there something in your life causing you to stick? Right. So that's you got to heal, right? You have to heal from past hurts in order to move on, at least address them. If it's not that, if it's someone that's just stuck, man, had a relatively good life, and there's more out there, and they're trying to seek purpose. The next thing I always turn to is, what's your spirituality like? What's your religion? Do you have a religion? I don't spend a ton of time with people in the beginning if they don't have any sort of spiritual ground. They're like, yeah, no, I don't believe in any of that. I mean, I believe in evolution. I'm like, well, here's the thing, man. I can't tell you you're wrong. I don't know. I don't think that's right, but that's not a debate that I'm willing to have with you. You're seeking higher highs. I'm probably not going to be the guy that's going to get you there, because the higher highs the pathway that I take, it starts with spirituality. So if you don't believe in that at all, I don't know that I'm going to be able to have much good information for you. You know, Matt, that's an honest statement that I would say. I wish that I was smart enough and eloquent enough and educated enough. You know, I dropped out of high school, man. I don't even have a high school. I got a high school diploma, a high school degree in prison. I was in a maximum security federal penitentiary, and part of my condition of release to get out was to get my GED. Otherwise, I probably still wouldn't have it. So I don't have an education. But what the things I do know are really from my own personal experiences, and so that's why I can speak with such passion and conviction, because I've been there, I've been there. And so if somebody wants to achieve a higher high, you don't have any sort of relationship with any sort of deity of spiritual, you think we came from microorganisms, man, I'm probably not going to be any good for you.
You can always bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right, right. Yeah. And so that's the first piece. So let's move past that. You got a guy that's got some spirituality. Then I would test, what's the depth of it? What is the depth of your relationship with your God? As I don't want to call it luck, or as it would have it, there's obviously a lot of Christians out here, and there's a lot of people, especially the people that I deal with, maybe some in the Midwest or whatever, but most people believe in God. Most people believe in Jesus. Most people have that Christian upbringing of some sort, that they have some sort of foundational belief in. So I start there. I would tell people, find a relationship with Jesus, find that spiritual relationship. And if you're anything like me, as we get older, we start liking subjects that we probably didn't like in school. And the reason we like them now is because we didn't take the time to learn about them back then. And now we're like, man, history was one for me. I hated history class. Thought it was boring. And now my kids think I'm boring, because all I want to do is watch history documentaries. But I did. That's the first thing I did when I got healed and saved. The first thing I went was like, Jesus, the human. No one ever has refuted that the guy walked on the planet Earth, right? No, everyone says that. So I just took it from a physical, historical aspect, and I want to learn about the times of Jesus from a history standpoint. And through that, the evolution of my faith grew deeper, and so I think that, somebody just starting out trying to find those higher highs, man, find a spiritual grounding. And when I say find it, I'm not like identify, okay, I'm a Christian, okay, I'm a Muslim. Like, be it, go in and be it, dive into it, know it, understand it, and fall in love with it, And I think from there, the rest of it will all, because within these religions, within the major religions that are in our world today, between Muslim, Christianity, I don't even really know what other religions are outside of those that are Buddha, all of those they all have very, very fundamental, basic life principles that even people that are atheists live by. There's some good people out there that are stone cold atheists, but they live by you should treat others the way you want to be treated. Those are biblical principles, right? That's not those aren't worldly advice. And even those principles are in the Quran, and I'm sure in the Buddhist teachings, they're saying you should treat people and love people the way you want to be loved, and so that's why I think it's so important for people that want to get to that next level. Go understand the religions and the faiths, the religion that your faith is born out of, because within those, there's usually a really, really amazing leader. Like for us, Christianity, Jesus, right? I mean, man, if you want to learn how to be a great leader, go watch that dude. You know what I mean?
No, that kind of advice could really help someone listening. The best thing to do is to know thyself. I mean, that's what all these religions teach everyone, is to be kind and know thyself, and help create
Absolutely.
and spread the word. Now,
Yes.
now I really want to go a little bit deeper into. I love why you say it. You go, why do I think being unstoppable is such an important quality? But why do you? Why do you think being unstoppable is such an important quality?
Well, relentless is what you're referring to, right? So, people will, when somebody has as a resilience and a relentless approach to things, they will get behind them. Number one, because they feel like, man, if I'm going to go into battle with somebody, whether it be life or a work task or whatever, they want to get behind the guy that they know is relentless. Me, everyone that knows me or knows anything about me will tell you the same things about me, that, I know he's up early. I don't think the guy ever sleeps. He's like the Energizer Bunny, and I think that just in itself has created such a magnetic quality, that people want to, they're intrigued by it, right? How do you accomplish so much, still happy, still have some joy in your life, even some social life, believe it or not. How do you do that? And it's because of that relentless approach. Like, I get up in the morning at 4:59. I know that's an odd time. I just do it so that I can say I get up in the 4 o'clock hour, but I get up at 4:59 every morning. And I'm telling you, the minute my feet hit the ground, the first thing I'm doing, grabbing my phone, and I'm checking all of the social platforms from the night before to see, what kind of likes we had, what kind of comments. I need to engage with the comments. I'm walking, like sleepwalking, letting my dog out while I'm liking and commenting on any of the comments that came over from the night before. It's when you have your mind set on something, like there are no bounds. Like, you can't say, oh, there's not enough time in the day. Yeah, there is. There is enough time in the day. Believe it or not, all that I just tell you that I do, I still sleep 7 hours a night, sometimes 8 hours a night. I just absolutely crush every minute that I'm awake. What's in somehow, some way.
Yeah, I love how you just don't let fear hold you back.
You can't. Fear is, hold on, it's an acronym. My friend had it. It's false evidence appearing real.
So true, because I mean, really, you're not going to be perfect. I mean, you'll make mistakes. It's all part of the process. I mean, I can promise you this. I mean, you're never going to know if you're going to sink or swim unless you jump in the water. You know what I mean?
100%. And then that's where your faith comes in. Because remember when Peter stepped out of the boat? Yeah, he didn't know he could walk on water, but he had faith.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just don't know how to tap into their will to just succeed. I mean, you are a perfect example of never giving up. I mean, for real. I mean, a lot of people out there listening, you have to do something different to be the top 1%. You can't just do what everyone else is doing. You have to do something totally different. To be the top 1%, you have to do what the 99% is willing to do.
Yeah, 100%. No doubt. No doubt. I believe that wholeheartedly. And it's I was just, before I was waiting to get on here with you, I was filming some content, just kind of a cluster of stuff that I'll release later. But one of the things I was talking about was, the journey. Sometimes the journey, and the example I used was, how excited are you when you plan a vacation? Like, think about, like, say, you got a family vacation or some vacation with your friends, your spouse, whatever. It's coming up in 3-4 months from now. You bought it way in advance, right? Maybe say 6 months, right? We have a vacation planned for next year in August in 2026. Like, I'm so freaking excited for that. I can't even tell you. So, think about that anticipation, that excitement. What if you could figure out how to wire your brain to be that excited about everything all day, every day, right? And so what I'm saying is, oftentimes we create goals, we create destinations in our lives only to, like, okay, what now? This is the sticking points that you're talking about, right? Like, man, if I could just, and then we call it the arrival fallacy too. If I could just get these credit cards paid off, I'll be so happy, right? Then those credit cards get paid off, and what happens? You're not happy. But you know what? The excitement leading up to that moment where you work a few extra hours at work, you put a few extra bucks towards those credit card bills, you see that balance coming down. Man, how great does that feel, right? Only to get them paid off and the feeling's gone. Now you're back to, what's next? Now I'm stuck. So I think that if we could just set our life up to where every day was a journey towards something, and for me as a Christian, and ultimately my destination is going to heaven, guess what? That's one place where the arrival, I can be done. Like, that's because you're supposed to be, like, it's all bliss and happiness and everything once you get there. So in between then, from now until then, that's my arrival. My destination is there, right? So everything between now and then is just a part of the journey. And guess what? Every day I get closer to that vacation in heaven, right? But that anticipation and that joy that you have in life still, I don't want to sit here and sound righteous. So how can we put this into real world application? Well, goals, milestones, I would refer to goals more as milestones, because a goal may give you some sense of accomplishment. And then if you're not wired enough to be relentless, like what I'm talking about, in a constant pursuit of higher highs, then once you reach a goal, you're like, all right, I reached it. Now what? And then you're just kind of back to feeling stuck and whatever else. But if you can say, hey, I want to get to this next milestone, in the car business, man, I've never sold 20 cars in 1 month as a car salesman. Once I get there, man, that's my first milestone. And then after that, I'm going to hit 25. And then after that, I'm going to hit 30 and then 30. But you know what I mean? Like, change your vernacular from goal to milestone, because a milestone is just it's a stop on the journey, right? And you can always keep that thrill, that anticipation, like, cool. You can get some joy and some reward out of hitting a milestone, right? And then, it's kind of like if you're driving on a road trip going out of town, you see 120 miles to your destination, 100 miles to your destination, and it gets more and more exciting, right? So if you just kind of keep those milestones as part of your journey, man, you never really lose joy.
Tony, I always say this, it's about the journey, not the destination, but the personal development throughout the journey. And those milestones are huge to hit, but I mean, it's all about the personal development throughout the journey.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
Tony, what does moving with purpose mean to you?
Okay, yeah, so you saw that probably recently. You have to. I was with my sales team the other day. I was giving a sales meeting, and if you look, and this isn't 100% accurate, but if you look, I would say generally, you look at people that are generally lazy by just their body language, right? Slumps over shoulders, drag their heels when they walk. They don't even take full steps. Those people just and then I always have a saying, is how you do anything is how you'll do everything, right? If you won't even just walk normally with your shoulders back and your chest up and walking with a full stride, it's probably how you're going to take on tasks, and that's how you're going to take on everything in life. You're just going to kind of be half-hearted and halfway in and dragging your feet along the way, and so when I say move with a purpose, when I get up out of my desk at work, I push away from my desk, because if I'm working on the computer and I'm doing whatever I do in my job, if I push away from my desk, it's because I'm pushing away from my work for a minute, but I'm going to do something of equal or greater value than what I'm doing. So I walk with a purpose. Like, you won't see me just kind of hem-hawing around. My steps are long strides. I usually move pretty quickly, because I'm going somewhere with an intention. I'm not going to just walk around and shoot the breeze, man. I'm everything I do, and that's the part of like what I was talking about. Everything I do is I have an intention, right? If I get up from where I'm at today, it's because I'm going somewhere else to do something else.
Yeah, it's almost like you're saying the definition of like discipline, because discipline is the bridge between like who you are and who you're meant to be. That makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. And it's a culmination. I would challenge you to this too, to add to that. Look at where you are right now. Whoever you are listening, look at where you are in your life right now, financially, spiritually, relationally, wherever. You are currently in the position you're at right now. It's the last 5 years of your habits culminated into this moment. The good news is this: if you don't like where you're at, look at what your habits are and change some of those. It's super easy, right? It's not that's the other part that I would tell you too. When you say, how does somebody get started, on a new journey or whatever, examine your life. Where are you right now? It's because where you are right now is a perfect combination of the things that you've been doing for your disciplines for the last 5 years of your life, or say 2.5 or 3 years, depending on how old you are. If you're a 22-year-old guy, the last 5 years, 5 years ago, you may have still been, in the locker room or playing with Hot Wheels, whatever. I don't know. If, depending on where you're at in your life, you just take the last few years of your main habits, the main disciplines that you have every day in your life. Start with something as simple as your physical appearance. How do you look? You look in the mirror. What do you look like? Are you jacked, ripped, shredded, cut up? If you're not, it's because the last 5 years you ain't been in the gym, you've been eating like crap, you ain't been taking care of yourself. That's an easy one, right? But think spiritually where you're at. How strong is your faith? Well, I don't know. I just kind of believe in God. How often do you go to church? We go for Easter and Christmas. Yeah, that's why your faith is kind of like, because you kind of go to church. Life is great, man, because what you'll get out of it, what you put into it.
So true. And a lot of younger men out there really have a hard time for having discipline and finding their passion. I mean, passion starts the fire really deep down. I mean, everyone's all passionate about starting a clothing brand, starting a podcast, starting a YouTube channel, starting their own business. But discipline, That's what keeps the coals hot when the fire is like fading. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, for sure, man. If you that listen, on one of my videos, I don't know if you saw, it was about that, man. If you get up early in the morning, like just start there. Every successful person I've ever met in my life, I'm not gonna say every, but if there were a statistical analysis that a betting odd that I was gonna bet on, I would bet an overwhelming majority of people that are successful get up around the 5 o'clock hour. Some earlier, some within, but you know, that 5 o'clock seems to be the sweet spot. If you can set your alarm to get up at 5 o'clock every day and start your day there, that you'll be on your way. And I'm talking about not like once a week, once a month. I'm talking about every day.
Every day is Friday. Now, if your kids could only learn like one thing about purpose from your life, what would it be?
Selfless, like giving outward out. We are, I think both my wife and I, we're both blessed with a spiritual gift of giving, you know, and that doesn't mean just money. It's giving time, resources, your heart, giving. And that in itself, in my life in the last 10 years, the more I give, the more I receive from God, you know, and the blessings. And so, yeah, that's being selfless and really leading from the ground, leading by example, being, you know, all of those things that you give it, just giving your all. And I think if you can get in that spirit of giving, sacrifice is born out of that, right? Because sometimes we give checks to the church or do things for people, and you know we're fairly young in business with my wife's companies, and it's a cash drain trying to grow and expand. I need every penny that I have. You know, we're not wealthy, so when I turn around and give somebody, you know, $1,000, $2,000 or whatever to help, I don't really have the money to do that. You know, I don't. It's a sacrifice, right? And the obedience in that, I think there's a lot that's born out of that. So giving, being selfless and giving, I think is probably one of the biggest things.
No, and putting God first, like you're doing, is very powerful. I mean, very, very powerful. I mean, how do you balance God's purpose for you in your own personal dreams?
There really isn't a balance, man. And I'm really all in. I think that's everything I do. The basis and the foundation of it all is to work for Him, because He saved me. You know, He brought me out of the pits of hell and the depths of darkness that I was in, and so I don't. I'd be foolish to not know that, not pay homage to it, and dedicate my life to it. I think that, you know, there's always been, I don't know, cliche or whatever. There's always been sayings that, you know, when I get to the pearly gates, you know, I'm standing at the pearly gates waiting to get into heaven, and you know, you have to answer to your account of life. You know, I can honestly say I'm excited. I'm excited to give that account, because I think that He is going to be more proud of me for where I was and then what I did to change it. Almost like the prodigal son, right? Yeah, I don't. I think that listen. I admire and I love that there are people out there that grew up in wonderful homes. They had money. They never struggled. They never wanted for nothing. They never suffered trauma, and they lived their whole life like that. Listen, that's wonderful. That's awesome. I don't wish the life that I had on anybody, right? It was full of darkness and sorrow and sadness and stress and all that. So I don't think you have to go through all that to be a good person, but that happens to be my story and my life. And so I think that when I get there and I get to answer to my account, I think God's going to be more proud of me because of what I accomplished in spite of what happened to me and where I was, you know. And so, yeah, man. So I think that's key to all of it, is making sure that I'm doing this for my purpose. Is that day, when that day comes, man, I can't wait to you know, for my interview to get into heaven. Can't
No,
wait to present my resume.
yeah, I was looking over your Instagram, and you have this Instagram post that says like hard work will trump talent every day, and it's like that quote that's like, what is it? It's like hard work will. I can't come up with it right now, but how does that seem to happen in your life?
So the biggest thing for me, probably the biggest relation point for me is in business, is in success, right? A lot of people that don't know me, and I have conversations, I'll go to charity events or galas, and I'll be in with, you know, in a mix of fairly wealthy people and business owners and executives, and I find myself in those settings, and part of the casual conversation with people like, so where'd you go to school at? Where'd you get your degree? And where I'm like, I didn't. Oh, really? So where'd you go to high school at? Well, yeah, I didn't finish that one either. But I'm there. I'm at the table. I'm at the same table with these people, and listen, I see I'm in the car business, so we take credit applications, right? And I get to see the incomes of people, educated people. I see what they write down for their monthly and annual income on the credit applications, right? And I've found myself to a higher level of income than most of them. Right. And so it wasn't through any education. It wasn't through any silver spoon. My dad's 84 years old. He still cuts hair behind a barber chair to this day. Still works. Right. My mom stayed at home for the first part of the marriage, and then she worked later in life. And my mom worked at Southwestern Bell as a clerk. And we just were normal people that grew up with humble beginnings. And we didn't come from money. We're from an immigrant family from Italy. All we knew was work, right? But I knew that Mike Tyson said it best, man. It was one I quote it all the time. And when I look at the opponent, and I don't look at everybody as my opposition, but if I see somebody that has a level that I'm trying to get to, I start looking at all their work ethic. I want to see what goes into that, right? At some point, like a CFO of a company, in order to get one of those, you probably have to have some sort of accounting degree or whatever. So I know where my shortcomings are gonna lie, right? And so I don't put myself in those situations. I put myself in situations where my hard work will pay off and trump everything, right? So, Mike Tyson says, hey, my opponent, if I hear he's getting up at 6 a.m. to go running, I'm getting up at 5. And then if I hear he gets up at 5, I'm getting up at 4. And if he tries to get up at 4, I won't sleep. And that's, I just have set this, again, put my rudder in the water when it comes to work, hard work, that I'm gonna die on that hill. That if you want to have something that someone else has, you can outwork them. If you outwork them, you will.
Yeah, you just don't become your future self overnight. You have to put in the hard work and the lot of 10,000 hour rule. I mean, if you want to be good at anything, just to start, just put 10,000 hours in. That's all it takes is to be decent at something. And then after that, I mean, you just put in the reps and you just don't become your future self overnight. It's not that easy.
Yeah, I tell people about the story of Michael Jordan. He didn't leave practice after practice. He sat. I've never played a minute of basketball in my life, but I'm gonna guess probably the easiest shot in the game of basketball is probably the free throw. It's close. You got no tension. Now you got a little bit of tension, I guess. Depends on what's on the line if you miss. But for the most part, right? Nobody's trying to swat it from you, whatever. You can relax and you can take your time and shoot the shot. Right? It's probably arguably one of the easiest shots. But yet he stayed after practice and would throw 1,000 free throws by himself when no one around, and the best that ever played the game. So why would we be any different? Patrick Mahomes, I'm in Kansas City, so this one, I get to say Patrick Mahomes. I mean, look at that kid's, one of the most gifted and talented quarterbacks ever to grace the field. He works his butt off during the off season and the on season. He doesn't stop.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize how much work goes into all these athletes outside of the crowds and all the cameras and everything else that's happening. I mean, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, but people got to understand you have to put in the work to be talented. Now, Tony, why do you say leadership isn't just about being perfect?
Well, it's sometimes being perfectly imperfect. So, there's a thing that I always say, General Patton used to have this quote that I think it was him. He said, "A poor plan violently executed is better than no plan at all." I think that a key element is sometimes you don't have enough information to have a perfect, right? And nor is it by design, and being a Christian, by God's design for you to have that information, because that's where faith comes in. He's calling you out into being obedient and stepping out and needing him, needing his guidance, subsiding your fears and going full force ahead into something that you don't have all the information to, and trusting the fact that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. As long as you know that piece of it, you got to have faith that he's going to unveil the rest of the answers along the way. You go the best way that you think you can. And if you're going the wrong way, he's going to give you an answer sooner than later, and he's going to direct you how to get you back on the track, right? So I think it's so important that everyone knows in leadership, leaders are genuine, right? Genuine leaders are not right all the time. They're not, right? They go full force into something with their heart, right? And they want it for good causes, good reasons. That's where the nobility comes in and stronger. Noble, genuine, right? They're doing things for the right reason. May not be the right answer, may not be the right way, but they're doing it for all the right reasons, right? And with an authenticity and an honesty about them, which where the trustworthy ties in, people will get behind that, right? And what I do as a leader is I always tell people, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go this direction. We're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, somebody speak up and we'll switch directions. We'll pivot on a dime, because that's where the O in stronger comes in for open-minded. I'm not saying I'm right, okay? And if you guys have some good objective information for me along the way, tell it to me. We'll pivot, we'll make changes, and we'll change, right? And we'll do something different if we all agree something's not right. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to sit here and wait for something to happen.
No, I love that, because that's the journey aspect of life.
Yes.
And for a lot of people out there, younger men especially, and just grown men as well. I mean, for someone out there that's listening right now, what's one truth about this conversation that you would hope they would walk away with?
Ooh, the good question, man. It's hard because all those characteristics in stronger. I think that the word truth, just you say, what would the truth be to walk away with? That word is probably truth. Having just an honesty. You know what? Here's another one probably that's really important. Humility, right? I think humility ties in a lot of, it will tie in open-minded, it will tie in trustworthiness. Heck, it even ties in spirituality, right? Because if you can humble yourself to realize that there's somebody bigger and bigger creator than you, that's from the spirituality. Trustworthy. Trustworthy doesn't mean trust me, I'm always right. It means trust me, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you, you can trust me, I'm going to tell you I'm wrong. It doesn't mean you have to trust me that I'm going to be right, right? And so there's a humility that comes with being trustworthy. Being open-minded, obviously that's humility. It's not, and you don't listen, it's not a dictatorship, right? I want everybody to pitch in. I want everybody to weigh in on the solution here. So yeah, I think humility is a really, really good, strong root word for somebody to walk away with.
No, that's a very strong word as well. And could you dive into what stronger means again at each letter?
Yeah. So S, spirituality. I wish my son was here. He could do it with us. S, spirituality. T, trustworthy. R, resilient. O, open-minded. N, noble. G, genuine. E, encouraging. And R is relentless. Now, can we highlight, just jump in on those real quick?
Please unpack them.
So yes, spiritual, we did talk about that one. So the spiritual side is a good fit, in it being the first word. It's so important that you have a spiritual foundation in all that you do. Whatever your religion is, I don't really care. That's not what this is about. Have a spiritual foundation. T, trustworthy. People have to know that the words that come out of your mouth, that they can hang on. And they also need to know that if you are wrong, you'll admit it, right? Trustworthiness doesn't mean right. It just means that you will give a correct and fair and a true answer. So TR, resilient. So resilience is super important, because if you are going to step out in faith and you're going to go after stuff, you're going to scrape your knees and you're going to get bumps and bruises along the way. And the word resilient, one that you hear it a lot, is kids are resilient, right? You always talk about their health. When they get sick, they're only sick for like a day. When they scrape their knee, the cut's usually gone within like 3 or 4 days. As we get older, those wounds take longer to heal. Kids are resilient. So the healing portion of resilience is what's important, because you got to have a short-term memory. You got to be able to heal from wounds, right? If you go after something and you fail, or you come up short, or somebody lets you down, you got to heal quickly from that, because you'll sit in it if you're not resilient. Open-minded ties into, I think when I was doing this, one of the words I was struggling with losing was humble and humility. I think humble quality of a leader is super important. So I think being open-minded really helps tie that in. Open-minded, there's a saying that if you allow your people to weigh in, they will have buy-in. So I think it's super important when you call a team together, instead of giving down directives every time, just automatically from you to them, and this is this, my way or the highway go, you will lose people in that, right? Hey, guys, we have a situation here where our numbers aren't where they need to be, or we're losing at halftime, or whatever the case may be. What are we going to do to fix it? Who's got some ideas? Like, let me hear from you guys. What do you think we should do? And then taking their advice. And if some of it's contrary to maybe what the direction you are wanting to go, give it a shot. Give it a shot. So you know what? Actually, what I was thinking was this, but you know what? I kind of like your conviction. You seem a little more convinced in what you think the solution is than maybe what I do. So let's go with your ideas. Everybody agree with that? Everybody buy into that? Yeah, we can buy it. Okay, good. Right? Now we just came up with a full solution that was different than what as the leader had. People can get behind that, right? People will, then they will continue to still come to me because the power that I possessed in my influence was to bring everybody together to speak openly about how they feel, and then create so that's open-minded and noble. As I was doing research on the word noble, I came across an old definition of it that I totally forgot about. Noble can refer to a gas, a noble gas in chemistry, if you remember that terminology, or a metal. And what noble metal is, something that is unaffected by oxygen, meaning it can't oxidize, right? So think about that. Think about something that is noble, that has a cause that is so rooted in its purpose, like a noble purpose, that it can be unaffected by anyone around it. So you can talk crap on it, you can whatever you want. It's not gonna, it won't cause corrosion to what I'm doing, right? You can laugh at me, you can scoff at me, you can make fun of my stronger movement and what I'm doing, but the nobility in what I'm doing, it will be unaffected by anything that anybody says. You will not rust, you will not oxidize my mission, right? So noble has, and you also think of noble in terms of royalty, right? And then when we talk about Christianity being the son of a king, right, and Jesus being the king, so there's a noble cause in that, right? That I'm doing a mission work for the King of Kings. So G, genuine. Back to what I was saying earlier about humility being genuine. Somebody that people know. That's the part where I always tell people what I tell you is coming from my heart. People know that whatever I'm at or whatever I'm trying to accomplish, it's usually for something better. Like for us to if we're trying to hit sales numbers and sell more cars so that we can make more money, because I know that money is going to help people financially pay their bills, feed their children, I just don't have selfish motivations in the things that I want to accomplish with my goals. And people know that, because I'm going to tell you, the more money I end up making is usually the more money I give. I give to the church. If it was for selfish reasons, people would understand, oh yeah, you're just trying to make all this money so you can buy the boat and the cars and planes. And I don't have none of that stuff. You know what I mean? I don't. And so it's genuine. And when people come to me and they have problems and they pull me aside, hey, because I tell people all the time, hey, if anybody ever needs any help, I'm outward about it, right? Call me, hit me up, DM me, whatever. I'll help you through your struggles. And then when they call me, that's what they get. They get help. So I'm not just out here, this Facebook prophetic preacher, this guy that acts like that I really am genuine. If you call me and you need my help, I'll go meet you at a coffee shop, and we'll sit down and I'll talk. I'll take hours out of my day, and my time's precious. I told you before, everything I do is with a purpose, but there's always time to complete those missions, right? And that's the genuine part. E, encouraging. I did a video the other day, is when does encouraging become enabling? Encouraging, I'm the biggest cheerleader. I I love getting to, this may be a little bit of selfish motivation, but I love pushing people and getting behind them and watching them succeed with some help from me. And I get to go home at night, and when my guys, and I've had one of my salesmen that works for me, was sleeping on the floor in his mother's apartment or something like that, and didn't have a bed. And now, here a few years later, he's got a luxury apartment that his mom actually lives with him, and it's completely furnished, and he's doing great, right? And I got to play a little piece in that. Of course, he had to come to work every day and put the work in and do it, right? But he followed some of my guidance, some of my advice, and so getting to play the little piece of people's lives, that's what keeps me wanting to encourage people. But there's also people that can drain you, right? You spend a ton of time encouraging them, and only for them to be stuck in their circumstances and never, play the victim card, so to speak. Those are tough, right? And so you gotta find, like, when is it becoming enabling, where they know that when all else fails, they can come to Tony, and I'll sit down and make them feel better after talking to him for a couple of hours. So I'm balancing encouraging and enabling, and trying to do that. And then the last one is relentless, man. You tie all this in, you just gotta go. You gotta go and go and go and not stop. And I say this, if you don't accomplish something and you're going to stop, like be done. You know what I mean? Like commit in your head that you're done, whatever it is that you were trying. Don't just like, oh, I'm worn out, man. I'll try again later. Or maybe I'll pick me. Don't do that. Go until you get it done, or just don't do it. Quit. It's fine. It's move on to the next. Don't do anything half-assed.
Yeah, I mean, put yourself in situations you don't feel comfortable in, and that's how you grow the most. So you become stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny that I'm kind of a meathead, man. Everything boils back to, the gym and the aesthetics, right? And so I can bounce everything and kind of always go back to that, from discipline and just everything else and stronger, right? Like I know that firsthand. Like when I just did yesterday, at 46 years old, I had no business doing it, but I did it just to see if I could still do it. I put up 365 yesterday on the bench, right? Thinking, number one, why did I do this? But I did it. But I remember, I remind myself, man, there was a time in my life where I couldn't even do 245 on each side. And the reason why I can do that now, years later, is because I've been pushing myself harder and harder and harder. And why do I still do 365 at 46 years old? Because I can, because I do it. Right? If I lose that, if I quit doing that and pushing myself out of that comfort zone, I'll lose it. I'll lose it. So it's just a way for me to remind myself to just stay uncomfortable, man. Live in that uncomfortable, like be comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yes. And a lot of younger audience really has to put themselves in situations they don't feel comfortable in because that's how you grow the most. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you want to become a singer, go sing some karaoke, go sing a song. And you're not going to be great at doing anything the first time you do anything. That's how you got to understand life is like that. I mean, you put yourselves in situations that, hey, maybe it's not going to work out. Me and my first podcast was not the best podcast in the world, but did I stop? No. I kept on putting one foot in front of the other and growing and learning the best I could because that's what it's all about is just trying to become the best you as possible and know thyself.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny you say that. I'm just going back looking at some of my first videos when I started this thing, 8 weeks ago. Just in 8 weeks, I'm definitely not a video editor by any stretch of the imagination yet, but I'm a whole heck of a lot better than I was 8 weeks ago.
No, I know the feeling, and even putting on a full podcast like this by myself, it's I do the scheduling, I do the thumbnails, I do the titles, I do the editing, I do the host of the podcast. And it's a lot of work, but I had to learn and adjust. I wouldn't ask anyone to do it for me if I don't know how to do it myself.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's all part of the journey, not the destination, and it's all about the personal development throughout the journey, and that's why I love what I do. And Tony, this is the part of the show where we turn to the Friday mindset part of the show, where we dive into your journey, your mindset, and the moments that really shaped you. And what has been the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Man, I've had so many of them. They really have. Gosh, I wish I'd have known that question prior to the show. So I've sought out so much good advice. That's why that's hard for me to pinpoint. Something that really stuck with me. This is going to be a little off topic of it all. It can all tie in. There was a time where in the first part of my sobriety, and I'll tie this all in. The first part of my sobriety, a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey," excited. I was going to church every week, and he said, "Hey, are you tithing?" And I said, "Buddy, so I am so broke, man. I can't even rub two nickels together. I am coming up short." At the time, not to get crazy into it, but when I finally decided to get sober and heal and go through that walk, it was, my wife and I had probably somewhere in the neighborhood about $10,000 to $11,000 a month between. I had a couple of boats, motorcycles, cars, even had two houses at the time. Just a bunch of terrible, terrible decisions that led to that point. But as I was healing, and I was going back into the workforce and trying to put my life back together, a friend of mine gave me a job working for him for $1,000 a week, cash, right? That wasn't enough, right? But I had to start somewhere, and I had a whole warehouse full of overstocked and freight. 'Cause I was buying freight. I'd buy these 53-foot trailer trucks full of just like overstocked goods, damaged goods, stuff like that. And, it's kind of a treasure hunt, right? You go through and you can find a ton of stuff in there that you could sell. So that's all I was doing, man. I was just hustling and selling stuff out of a warehouse that I had while I was working. My other friend asked me, he said, have you tithed? And I said, man, I can't, buddy. I'm making $4,000 a month. My bills are 11,000 before I even eat a morsel of food. And I said, I just can't afford it. He says, Tony, you can't afford not to then. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, sounds like you need all of God's help at this point. And I'm like, all right, so if I'm $7,000 a month or, short, what's another $400 going to be? So I did. I went to church that next week. I got paid on Friday, cashed my check, went to church, tied the $100. It's supposed to be 10% of your income. I came out from that church service, and at the time there was no Facebook Marketplace. It was Craigslist was really big back then, and I had just all bunch of stuff loaded on Craigslist that I had been trying to sell. I came out of church, and my inbox was just full of messages of people wanting all of these things I was listing, right? And so I would drop my family off at home. I'd go down to the warehouse and I'd sit down there for 2 or 3 hours, meeting people down there, just slinging, hustling, printers. And, I had like steel beams. I mean, I just had the most random stuff that you can imagine. And I'm just hustling. And I would come home and give all the money to my wife, like, here, whatever bills are due, pay them. And man, I kept doing this like week after week. And so what was born out of that was obedience, humility, determination, discipline, just a lot of things were born out of that sacrifice, right? And I think that's probably the root word in all of it that was born out of that was my ability to sacrifice. And so I'm sure I've had those recommendations and that advice from a lot of people, like you got to be willing to sacrifice things. And that's something I've said a lot is, if you're not willing to sacrifice for your family, then ultimately your family becomes the sacrifice. And
That advice can really help someone listening. And
yeah.
really, because, you put in the hard work and the discipline, and people out there really have to understand that nothing's going to come to you unless you put in the work.
And sacrifice comes in all forms, right? Like tithing for that. It's money you have and you can hang on to it and clutch your fists, or you can sacrifice that money in exchange for an obedience of faith, right? And an obedience. And that grows, that muscle grows. So it turns into, I'm willing to go to work early. I'm willing to stay at work later. I'm willing to go and work a day that I would normally have off. I'm willing to work from my laptop at home. I'm willing to sacrifice my time in exchange for, to be able to make a better living for my family. And, I'm willing to sacrifice a few extra hours of sleep in the morning so I can get to the gym at 6 o'clock so that I could be physically fit and in shape. So I have time to do that. I'm willing to sacrifice. And I'm willing to sacrifice, and I'm willing to sacrifice. How you do anything is how you'll do everything. So it all started with that one sacrificial moment where I just handed over money I didn't have to the church out of an act of obedience, And then from there, that was the springboard. Like it just, the blessings in my life, it was a snowball effect, right?
No, so true. Tony, what is something that if someone out there was struggling to find purpose, what would you tell them?
Well, yeah, you have to find your why first. And so, man, this sounds really, 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 really cruel, but like what's keeping you, this is going to sound really cruel. What's keeping you from taking a bunch of pills and putting yourself out of your misery? What's keeping you from taking a gun and shooting yourself? What's something is keeping you from doing that. If you're in a place in your life where you're miserable and you don't feel like you have any reason to be here, you haven't taken your life. And so you have a reason for being here. I would ask you, start there. Give yourself a foothold, an ounce of an ability to grab on something that you do have a purpose. Like you haven't taken your own life because you do have a purpose. So what is it? Well, my mom, my kids, okay, man, that's your why. That's your why. Go out and do everything for them. If that's the reason why you're still here and you feel like you're called to be here and you haven't taken your own life or whatever, that's your why.
Yeah, because a lot of times on my podcast, a lot of people say, find your why. And the why is so powerful in anyone's life, in everyone's life, because you have to start with the why. Write it down. You have to understand what your purpose is on this floating rock through space. Now, Tony, what is one truth about life that you wish more people understood?
That, I always kind of go back to that spiritual piece. The truth that I wish everybody understood and really knew was that God is real, and that all of this can't happen, just by happenstance. There's a real God's real. And if we could just really wrap our heads around that, our life would be better. And I think the other truth, the more worldly truth that everybody needs to understand, that if our men, I'm not going to take anything away from women. Women are so, so important. In fact, as a man, we're supposed to protect and serve and provide for our women. But as men, our place in this world is so, so, so important. There was this statistic that 17% of all children will end up going to church if the mom goes to church. 93% of children will end up going to church if the dad goes to church. So the truth that everyone needs to know is that we need more men in this world, better, wholesome, qualified men in this world. And I think that if we did, it would make everything. And that is the true epidemic of seismic proportions that we have in our world today. It's the lack of men. I don't think anybody really, really understands just how bad it is. There are a lot of good men out there. Don't get me wrong. What we really need is those men, the ones that are good out there, is to be bolder and stand up and not be the silent majority. Because I think that if we could get more men to step into these leadership roles like government and churches and homes, and our world will be a better place. If real men were running this world would be a really, really good place.
Now, that's a powerful statistic.
Yeah, it's
Now,
tough to refute, right?
now, can you give me some qualities of a real man?
Yes. So I asked the other day, I'm going to start in the home. I asked the other day, can you be a good father and a bad husband? And you can imagine some of the responses I've gotten. People say yes. I've had, I've challenged some thinking in that. Now, I'm not saying, can you be a good person and be a bad husband? A good person is somebody who you are at the core, right? Like outwardly, what you do, what your actions are different, right? Being a good person at your core doesn't automatically make you a good husband or a good father, or, so we have to understand what I'm saying here. When I say you cannot be a good father, you can't have the title good father and be a bad husband, because what you're saying, and I would challenge women specifically, if you're saying this about your husband, oh, he's a great father, but he's just a terrible husband. What you're telling me is you're okay with your husband teaching your kids that when they get married, it's okay to mistreat their wives. Are you telling me that? And most of them are like, well, no, I'm not telling you that. I said, then he's not a good father. Maybe an okay father. He may have great intentions to be a good father, but he's not being a good father. And so that is something that, just that piece right there, that I challenge some of the worldly thinking on a really deep level, though, like, kind of like a child does when they're asking questions and they go, and then what? And then what? Like, how's babies made? Well, first mommy and dad follow. And then what? Well, and then they kiss. And then what? Right. In order to really get to the core and challenge people about like what a man looks like, you got to go, and then what? And then what? And you got to really, really, to the core of that subject, challenge them, right? And listen, this is where I go back into saying that the humility side of me, the only reason I boldly come forward and say things like this is because I lived that other life. I did it wrong. I was the guy who thought I was a great husband because I loved my children and I gave them any toys that they wanted and I protected and provided for them and all that stuff, right? But I was terrible to my wife. I was the guy that thought I was still a good father. Even though I wasn't doing the right things by my wife, I was still a good father. No, I wasn't. I was a lukewarm father. And that's what we need to challenge today. Those are the challenge points that I challenge men to come forth. First and foremost, challenge themselves. Look in the mirror. Are you okay with teaching your kids every aspect of what you do in life, in and out of the darkness, right? Like what goes on behind closed doors? Just because your kids don't see that you and your wife fight in private, never fight in front of your kids or whatever, your kids know that you're not loving your wife. If you guys are, we don't ever argue in front of the kids. It doesn't matter. They know if you're in love. They know if you love each other and you're in love, they know that. And that's what you have to teach them. In the Bible, the most coveted relationship. In fact, they often talked about Jesus being the bridegroom, right? There's a lot of marital passages in the Bible, references to weddings and marriages, right? Because the relationship between a husband and wife is the most closest relationship between God and us. And so that is, if that's the most coveted and most important relationship on this planet, if you're not taking care of it, then you can't tell me you're taking care of the other ones.
Yeah, men out there really, really need to work on themselves the most, and then for their kids, for their wife, for their whole life, work on themselves to be the best them as they can be, the best guy, the best husband, the best father. That's what you have to be.
Yes.
Can you unpack this for me? Because I haven't gone down this road. But how important is giving up all the alcohol or any addictions that you have to become the man you want to be?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So that is any sort of dependency. So I feel like why does God let bad things happen to good people? Number one, we're in a fallen, evil world, so I don't necessarily think that he lets them happen, right? There's free choice, there's free will. That's the beauty of the relationship that we have with God, is we get to choose whether or not we love him. He has enough power, he could make us love him, right? But that's not very rewarding for him. He wants to create opportunities for us to love him, right? That's what he wants. And so addiction creates a separation of the dependency on him for your joy, your power, your whatever it is, for your a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol when they're coping, right? Coping with problems, with pain, with suffering and all that. And that creates that separation between you and God. And so that's why it's so important. And it also creates separation from you and your wife, you and your children, you and your friends, you and your family. Because when your dependency becomes on substance, whether it's for fun, you may say, hey, man, I only drink and do drugs when I go out and party. So your dependency is on the drinking and the drugs in order to have fun, right? If you have to use something of those to have dependencies, you are not dependent on the relationships in your life. So in order for me to go out and have fun, I got to go out with people that I enjoy being around, because I don't do drugs and alcohol, right? So my dependency is on the relationships. I got to make sure got to have really good relationships with people that I can go have a social life with. I depend on that for my fun, for my joy, right? If I'm struggling and I'm suffering and I need help and I'm stressing out, I can't do drugs and alcohol because I was an addict. So my dependency becomes on God, becomes on the word and those things, and right? So I think that in all things, if you eliminate those dependencies from your life, you will find that you turn those dependencies into something that has a greater substance that will bring you greater value later. Everyone knows, man, you can go out and get drunk and have fun, and that next day's hell. You're tired, if you're doing blow all night, your nose is hurting and you're, whatever, right? It's just like, there's no value, no value beyond that moment, right? When you have a dependency on substances of value, the value perpetuates even beyond. Now, if I'm struggling or whatever, if I need to call a friend and have a friend that I can depend on when I'm having struggles, that friendship grows deeper. If I turn to a bottle, the only thing that grows deeper is the puke in the toilet. Sorry, that's a little graphic. Yeah, I mean, so I think it's so important to rid the substances out of your life whatsoever, because it creates a dependency on something of no value.
And Tony, what I've realized with God is that if you're favored by God, you're also favored by the devil. So walk away with the person that you came there with. Go to the dance, walk away from the dance with who you came there with, because you're also favored by both sides.
Amen. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And sometimes it feels like a bigger tug on the evil side.
That's how it always is. I mean, there's a yin and a yang. There's always good and the bad.
Yeah.
And for anyone out there struggling with their confidence, especially younger men, what should they do?
You find your identity in Jesus, right? And so, like, for me, what I was explaining earlier about put yourself in a situation, start out with little wins, right? Put yourself in a situation where you got a high probability of winning, and you build on that. You build on that, and you put yourself in tougher. It's almost like the bracket, the tournament. If you go play in a tournament, the bracket, your first match is typically going to be your easiest, right? And the further you progress toward the championship, the competition gets tougher, right? It's just talk about the bracket, the tournament of life, right? Let's start out. If you're entering into this tournament of life right now and you want to get it turned around and you're trying to be victorious, let's start out with some little wins, right? Let's start out with something you absolutely and no holds barred know you can accomplish. Set your alarm for 5 a.m. tomorrow morning and get up. No one can get in your way but you. Let's accomplish that goal, and then do it the next day, and then say, I'm going to do this every day for the next, maybe you take the weekends off. So Monday through Friday, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. Accomplish that goal. Like, hit that milestone in your life. And from that, your chest will start coming up. Your shoulders will start coming back. You'll start walking with a little bit more intention, right? And then you start compiling, now that winning becomes a habit, right? Winning becomes a habit. You won those first steps, that first challenges. You continue to do that and you layer in a couple of more challenges, right? Now, not only am I going to get up at 5 a.m., but I'm also going to run. I'm going to run I hate running, so I'm going to run around the block. So now I'm getting up every day, 5 a.m., and I'm running around the block. Well, then you do that for a month. You get up at 5 a.m. and you run around the block twice, and then you run for a mile. Then you run for a mile and you go to the gym for an hour. Then you go to the gym for an hour. Then you start your nutrition plan. See what I'm saying? You just start stacking one good,
It's
and
those
that's
small wins on top of each other.
no question. And my oldest sibling told me one time, he said, bro, you're just gonna have to stack good decision on top of good decision, and that past will be buried before you know it. And there you go, another good piece of advice I forgot to mention. If you've made a series of bad decisions in your life, it's okay, man. It's okay. They will get all pushed away. The more good decision on top of good decision on top of good decision, those other ones can't do anything but go away, or they go so far in the distant past. Then every now and again, somebody will come around and remind you of one of those past things that you did. And in my opinion, those used to offend me a little bit. Like, when am I ever going to outlive this past life? Instead, I reframed that and said, that's great. I'm glad that God brings those in my life because it humbles me and it makes me remember where I came from. So rather than saying living in guilt and shame and reliving that, I'm like, it just reminds me of just how good I'm doing. Like, you know what? You're right. Now I kind of
This
laugh at it,
reminds me,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, like what a jerk I was.
Yeah, no, this reminds me of a video game. Like, you start off with nothing and you got to slay the big boss, the big dragon at the end of the video game, but you're not prepared in the beginning of the video game. You have nothing. You start with nothing and you have to go through the chapters to become who you're supposed to become to defeat the dragon.
100%. That's exactly right. That's a great analogy. Yeah. Yep.
Now, with all the knowledge you have, what's a belief or mindset shift that changed everything for you?
Just that I'm worthy. I'm worthy, and I've got a sweatshirt that I wear to the gym. Oftentimes it's a crown and it says child of the one true king. If you ever really look, and this is, you can almost boast and brag in your stance in your spiritual life, when in mine, I can anyway, as a Christian, because if I were literally the child of a king, if I were a prince, I would probably act more royal, right? I would have, waiters and maids, and, we would live in a palace, and, all of that. So I try to enter into life with this mindset that I am a prince. I'm the child of a king. I need to act like it. So when you're in public, how do the first children, the president of the United States, the kids are always perfectly dressed. They're always, in line. They're always acting on their best behavior. You know what I mean? And so I just think to myself, man, if I'm the child of a king, I need to act like it, right? I need to, but not just in the public eye, always, right? Always. But it gives me a confidence, like, if my dad's the king of the land, I worry about nothing, right? I don't have anything to worry about. And that's true. I don't really have anything to worry about. Our worries are so worldly, that it's at the end of it, we really don't have anything to worry about. Listen, let's say it's a worst case scenario. I die. I go to heaven. That ain't so bad.
Now, Tony, when your time comes, it could be today, it could be next year, it could be 30 years from now, like you were saying, what kind of legacy are you going to leave?
So that's a really good question. I've thought a lot about this, and that's why another reason why I've got my 10-year-old son that I want to do this with, because I want him to carry it right. But I want to be known. There being Kansas City is a fairly small community, and everybody knows everybody. And there was a period of time where the guys that I was running with or the people that I knew were part of the in crowd. You could call me for just about anything drug related, and I could get it for you, right? And so I was considered a go-to guy for where the party was at, where the drugs are at, where the girls are at, where all the things not good, right? Now I'm the guy that when somebody's struggling on Facebook and put something out there, I'm the guy that gets tagged in those for someone that someone could reach out to. So when I'm dead and gone and people talk about me later on, if my name ever comes up, I want the firmest memory of me to be how I was a great person and I had a mission in life to help people and that I did that. And so I want to be known for people that had an impact on people's lives in a wholesome way, positive way. Ultimately, being a Christian, obviously, my underlying is how many people did I lead to Christ? Or
No,
how
that's a
many?
powerful legacy you want to leave, Tony.
Yeah, yeah, and somewhere in there, if I could make a ton of money too, and leave generational money for my kids and grandkids, that'd be cool too. But that would be the byproduct of it all, if that's God's will for us. But that's not the legacy I'm wanting to. We're really worried about.
And the show is called Every Day is Friday, and Friday has a special energy, whether it's freedom, excitement, or just feeling of accomplishment after a long week. And Tony, I want to hear from you. What does Friday mean to you?
Yeah, I think you hit it. That is, Friday is a kind of a good cap to a week, and it pivots you or springboards you into a hopefully a fun-filled weekend, maybe of relaxation with your family. For it's funny you say that. Kind of really goes along with what I was saying early. For every day is Friday for me. I enjoy every day like it's Friday, and I try to live every day, like it's the last day. And if tomorrow comes, it's going to be great, and I think Friday's a great day to kind of really represent that. If you could live every day like it was Friday, man, how fun it goes with if every day was that, on your way to a vacation. I mean, if every day were a Friday, that'd be awesome, man.
Bring that Every Day is Friday energy into your everyday life. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's
Being in the
awesome.
moment.
I love it. I love it. That definitely lines up with my values for sure, man.
And Tony, this is your chance to lead the listeners with something powerful. Is there anything else you want to share?
For the men that are out there, I'm asking as a fellow brother out here that we do better. We do better as men, and let's lead the next generation of leaders. Your sons and grandsons. Let's lead them to be better. And further your legacy, your family legacy. Leave a mark on this earth. That's something of substance and value. But men, let's be men. Let's call ourselves to task here and stand up for what's right. And I listen. There's no political agenda here. I want Republicans and Democrats and independents. I want you all to be men. Whatever you are, whatever religion you are, I want you to be a man. I want you to care for your wives. I want you to care for your mothers and your sisters and your daughters. And I want you to empower them, and I want you to listen to them. The women that are out there that may hear this, I want you to understand that you are the neck of the home. The neck on the body supports the head and gives the head direction. So we need the women in our life just as much. I can be the head of the house, but if I don't have a strong woman behind me giving me direction and support, then I'm useless. I'm just a head. And so make sure, men, women, we got to band together. We got to be people, and we got to hold each other accountable. And that would be my message.
No, that's such a good point. And all your information will be in the description down below. But I want to make sure that people know where to follow you and support your work. Where can they follow and support your work?
Yeah, so we're on all the social sites, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. That's TC2, which my name is Tony Cardello and my son is a junior. So the TC2 is the first part of it. So TC2 _ the stronger leader. So that's where you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook under the Stronger Leader, and then you can go to our website. We're still developing it, but it's there. There will be some merch. So hopefully have a merch store live. I get the bracelets and then our cool logos that we got put out on some t-shirts, and you'll be able to get some other swag and some merch. So it's thestrongerleader.com.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, all your work in the future. Keep on doing what you're doing and keep on growing stronger as much as you can. I'm so excited to see that. I'm so happy to see that your son is involved too. I mean, that is so incredible how you got him involved, and he gets to learn everything that you've been through, and then he gets to learn business as well.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know a lot of listeners got a lot of value out of this, and it's been an awesome conversation, Tony. I appreciate you being here, and thank you for sharing your stories and experiences.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and to the listeners, stay tuned for more amazing stories on Every Day is Friday 365. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow, share, and keep that Every Day is Friday mindset going. Until next time, make every day feel like Friday.